Good morning, Chris. Suddenly there is a power failure here. Okay. So let me share my screen. Good morning, Angelina. All right. So just to have a quick recall of what we have learned in the previous class, we have learnt about the public key crypto system, where we came across the usage of two keys. One is the public key, the other one is the private key. Um, okay, and the advantage of public key crypto system in general over our conventional crypto system is that you can achieve something called authentication. Not only confidentiality but also the authentication. But the our conventional algorithm or our symmetric algorithm cannot help you to achieve the authentication. And we also had looked at four different possible usage of these keys. Mm, Wanted to talk about that before we get into the actual RS algorithm today. There are two entities, sender as well as receiver. Sender used to have his own private key and his public key and the receiver's public key. So his keychain will contain three keys. Similarly, the receiver will have his own private key, his public key, and the sender's public key. He also would have three keys in his keychain. All right. So when there is a plain text to be encrypted and sent to the receiver by the sender, he has got now the public key of the sender, his own public key. Can this public key be used to encrypt? You can use it to encrypt, but who can decrypt? Only the corresponding private key can be used to decrypt it. Who is having the corresponding private key? Only the sender, because it is not a public key. So in that case, this kind of encryption is not useful. Okay, rather it is useless. The second option is he can use his private key to encrypt the message. When he uses his private key to encrypt the message, which key can be used to decrypt the corresponding public key? Who is having? Almost everyone is having this public key. Is it useful? Yes, it is useful. How is it useful? Because only the public key of this sender can be used to decrypt this message. It serves as authentication, which means only the corresponding private key has been used for encryption. That also is available only with the sender, right? So this helps you to get something called authentication. Second one. Okay. Now the third one, can he use the public key of the receiver to encrypt? Yes, he can use the public key of the receiver to encrypt. For instance, in our example, the receiver's public key can be used for encryption. So who can decrypt? Only the corresponding private key has to be used for decryption. Others will not match. Okay, who is having the corresponding private key? Only the receiver is having the corresponding private key. So what's the purpose of this encryption? This helps Yeah. So this I expected that there might be an issue. Yes. All right. Now I'm back. Can someone say yes? Whether I'm audible to you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yeah. All right. So let me share my screen. All right, so I'm still in the first slide. So let's proceed. Now we have the RSA algorithm, which is following the public key crypto system, where one key is used for encryption and the corresponding pair of the key is used for decryption. And in today's session, we are going to look at the algorithm, RSA algorithm, not in detail, but what is needed for us. And also parallelly, we'll work out with an example so that we can understand how it works. Right? So one or two points about the RSA algorithm. So RSA is a public key encryption algorithm. All right, it is the first practical implementation of public key encryption, which was discovered during the year 1977. If you look at the history, there was a call for public key crypto system. Till then, it was not existing, and there were multiple proposals from various scientists and researchers from across the globe. And this was one of the algorithms which also was in the competition, a candidature at that time, but it was chosen as the best one, prepared by a team of people from MIT. They were Ron Rivest, Shamir, and Adelman. Rivest, Shamir, and Adelman. That's the reason this algorithm is also given their names, RSA. All right. So this is the most used public key encryption algorithm today. Okay, I do not know what's happening today. Okay, by the meantime, you please type in your register number as well. I do not know when there will be trouble with internet connectivity. Please type in your register number in the chat box quickly. Yeah, let's move on. As I have mentioned in the RSA algorithm, any of the public key crypto system where the key generation plays a very important role. All right, because that is the driving force. So when you talk about the key generation, the challenge here is you are supposed to have two keys. One is used for the encryption, the other is used for decryption, and the encrypted text must be decrypted properly. Okay, so you cannot have some random numbers. It's not possible, right? So that is very important. Once we see that, we also are going to see how the encryption and decryption can be done in RSA. All right, so let's go stepwise. Very simple one, but you are supposed to remember these steps. All right. So first step is we are going to choose two numbers, P and Q. Okay, is it what is P and Q? It's a standard representation which is used for our RSA algorithm. So can I use A and B? You can, but this is the custom one which has been customized one which is used for our RS algorithm. So P and Q are two prime numbers and they cannot be equal, right? So we are going to use two numbers P and Q. Okay, P and Q are both prime numbers and they cannot be equal. So for our example calculation, I have chosen this. I have taken from your textbook. So P is chosen as 17 and Q is chosen as 11. P and Q are prime numbers as you could see and they are not equal, right? Step 2. We have to calculate the value of n by multiplying these two numbers. P and Q are multiplied to take the value of n. Simple. So n is, I do not know whether it's going to be a prime number or not. All right. So it cannot be prime number because it has at least two factors, 17 and 11. So you have got 187 in this example, the value of n. Simple. A third one, we have to calculate phi of n. Okay, this phi of n is calculated such that p minus q is multiplied by q minus 1. In other words, p minus 1 times q minus 1 or so. Okay, these two have to be multiplied, which means 16 has to be multiplied with 10. P minus 1 is 16, q minus 1 is 10. So 16 has to be multiplied with 10, you got 160. Simple calculations, right? So far you have chosen two numbers, P, Q, both are prime numbers, they are not equal. Calculate n by multiplying these two numbers, then calculate pi of n by P minus 1 multiplied by Q minus 1. Moving on. Step 4, we have to select an integer, okay, a value, a number, right? Where the greatest common divisor of phi of n and e should be 1. What is this greatest common divisor of I of n comma e is equal to 1? You are going to choose a value of e such that the greatest common divisor of phi of n. What is phi of n in our example? It was 160. If you look at the previous one, phi of n is 160. So the greatest common divisor of phi of n and the number which you are going to choose should be 1. In other words, it should be relatively prime. What is relatively prime? 160 is the value. 160 is not a prime number. Okay, it is a even number. So number 2 can divide, 10 can divide in this example, 6, 8 can be used, 16 can be used to divide, 5 can be used. Okay, so it's not a prime number. But on the other hand, pi of n and the number which we are going to choose should be relatively prime. You got it? If you take these two numbers, phi of n is 160, choose another number, there will not be any common divisor for it. That's the reason the greatest GCD of these two numbers should be 1. Hope you understand. These two are relatively prime. There is no common divisor except 1. Okay, so hence they are called as relatively prime. Not only that, there is small condition. The value of e must be less than, not less than or equal to, less than phi of n. So it can take 2 or 3 or 4 up to 159. Okay, so in this example, we have chosen E as 7. So far, simple. Okay, we haven't got any confusion so far. All right. Now, the fifth step is we are going to find out or we are going to calculate. So far, we haven't calculated except some multiplication. But here we are going to calculate a value called D such that D is equal to E inverse mod phi of n. What is this E inverse? Very simple, sir. This is equal to DE is equal to 1 mod phi of n. E is already known. E is 7. Okay. Now E is available as 7. I forgot to connect my writing pad. Probably I'll write like this. So E and D should be equal to 1. Please bear with my handwriting. I'm using the mouse to do that. Mod phi of n. Okay, so ED is equal to 1 mod phi of n. Very simple, sir. E is chosen already. It is 7. All right. You should find the next number such that the multiplication of these two should give you 1 if you take the modulus of phi of n, which means you should take a value here. And if you take modulus phi of n, mod 160 in our example, answer should be 1. So one of the answers is this number should be either 161. Okay, if you take 161, if you take mod phi of n 160, the answer is going to be 1. Okay, or it should be 160 plus 160 plus 1 or 321. that at that time also you will get. So this is the straightforward way for our simple calculation. Otherwise, we should go for Euclidean mathematics, which is not within our scope of this textbook. But interested readers can go for, I think, third or fourth chapter in our textbook will give you more light on how it works. But this calculation is very simple. Okay, determine D such that D is equal to E inverse mod 60. It's not 60, it is 160. Okay, it is 160. 160, and also D should be less than 160. The number which you are going to use here must be less than 160. So in that case, look at this. This is your E value. Okay, this is what is chosen, not chosen, but actually the calculator. So 23 times 7 will give you 161. So 161, if you take mod 160, you will get 1. So 23 is the right value here, which is for D. Okay, I repeat, you have to calculate D such that D is equal to E inverse mod phi of n. All right, which is similar to ED is equal to 1 mod phi of n. E is already chosen. You have to find a value of D such that if you take the modulus phi of n of the whole value, you should get 1. Okay, the possible values are, as I said, 161 or 321 or 481 and so on. All right, so you have to find out where you will get 161. If you go for 161 divided by 7, you will get 23. You can find out whether for 321 it is working, is working. You should go for the minimum one. So obviously you will stop here. You are getting 161 by multiplying 7 by 23. Okay, so 7 is multiplied by 23 to get 161. So the value of D is 23. Okay, so far what have we got in our hand? We have got P value, Q value. From P and Q you got N value, then P minus 1, Q minus 1, we got phi of N value, and then we have chosen another value called E, which is relatively prime with our phi of N, and then we calculated the D value such that ED is equal to, or D is equal to, it is a multiplication inverse, simple, equal to 1 mod phi of N. So, and we also have calculated the value of D as 23 in our example. Okay. Now, where are we? We are almost at the end of the calculation of public key and private key. Okay. So, from this, how the public key is taken, the combination of E and N. What is E? You have chosen. What is N? P multiplied by Q is equal to N. So the combination of E and N, that is 7, 187 is public key. You have found out the value of D, which is 23. So the combination of this D and N, that is 23 and 187 is the private key. Okay. Now the key generation is done. Right? Don't you think it's very simple? Whether you think or not, this is very simple. Okay, very simple steps. You have to find out, you have to choose two numbers. They are not random. These two should not be equal. They both must be prime numbers. Okay. So for our example, you have chosen two numbers. Then calculate n by multiplying these two numbers. Simple. Calculate phi of n by reducing these numbers by 1 and multiply them. So p minus 1 and q minus 1 are multiplied to get phi of n. Okay. And the fourth step, you are going to again select another integer e such that e is relatively prime with phi of n. Mathematically, it is the greatest common divisor of phi of n, and the number which we are going to choose should be 1. And also that the number which you are going to choose should be less than phi of n, greater than 1. All right, so we have chosen, and then we have to calculate the value of D such that D is equal to 1 mod phi of n. We have seen how to calculate it, and after that we have got the public key and the private key. So this number can be made public. This number has to be kept secret. All right. The numbers are very small so that you can easily factorize it. So this can be broken. But in practice, these numbers are going to be in multiple digits, normally in the range of 2 power 512 to 2 power 1024. That much bigger numbers are used, okay, for our calculation generally, so that which cannot be broken. But in our calculation, we have chosen these two numbers, okay, public key and private key. All right, moving on. The next step is for encryption. All right, how the encryption is happening, how the decryption is happening, are they working properly? Right. Now we have to choose the plain text, not choose the plain text. You should take the plain text as a block and choose the plain text. So each and every of the alphabets in the, for example, your original message is welcome to Karunya. So it's up to you to find out the corresponding numbers in numeric value. You can take every of the number into equivalent decimal number or convert into hexadecimal. It's all I leave to you, but you will end up in getting some numbers for every of the alphabets. Okay, so this number should be less than some value of n. Okay, that's how you should choose as the block. Okay, now how do you calculate the ciphertext? Simple, sir. Ciphertext is calculated. Original message is raised to the power of e. What is e? E is here. All right, so this is done by the receiver for our calculation. Okay, so he is doing using your public key. He is encrypting mod n because e is known, n is also known. Okay, so the receiver means the other person is encrypting the message using this formula. Take the original message, raise this to the power of e, take the modulus n. The result value will be your ciphertext. All right, so for our calculation, original message is taken as 88. Okay, so what's the formula? 88 power 7. E value is 7, right? Yeah, E value is 7. And mod n, which means 88 power 7 mod 187 should be calculated. Okay, this number looks really difficult because 88 power 7 is really going to be a very big number, and then you take the modulus value, it's going to be really a big calculation, even for our textbook calculation, for our sample calculation. But when you go for the bigger or biggest number for the actual implementation of RSA, this is going to be a nightmare for even for your computers to do that directly. So for that matter, we go for modular arithmetic. Okay, what is modular arithmetic? If I could recall correctly, a power n multiplied by a power m. Okay, a power n multiplied by a power m is equal to a power n plus m, if you remember. Or in other words, a power m multiplied by a power n is equal to a power m plus m. All right, simple. So the same formula, same log, same mathematical equation is used here. You have got 88 power 7, which can be taken like this: 88 power 4 mod 187 multiplied by 88 power 2, 88 power 1, and then you take the modulus 127. So it is equal to 4 plus 2 plus 1, 4 plus 2, 6 plus 1. So this is equal to 88 power 7 mod 187. Hope you understand that. This is modular arithmetic. All right, so 88. Now 88 mod 187 is 88. Okay, 88 power 2 mod 187 is 77. Then 88 mod 187 is 132. Okay, 132 multiplied by 77 multiplied by 88. Okay, mod 187 will give you 8,94,432. If you again take the mod 187, you will get the ciphertext as 11. Okay, so is it compulsory that I should use modular arithmetic? If you go for modular arithmetic, it is easy. All right, so like this, you will be able to calculate. You will get the ciphertext. Now, what is to be done? We have to check whether this can be decrypted. So what's the procedure for decryption? You should use another key. You cannot use the same key. You should use another key for decryption. So we'll see in the next one, but we have to also see what could be the key. We should use the value of d and n, that is 23 and 187 to decrypt. Yes, here. So your ciphertext is 11, as we have got from the previous screen. And then the plain text is calculated like this. The ciphertext is raised to the power of d. Okay, that's the private key. The receiver is using his private key to decrypt it. Mod n. All right. So n is 187 in our example. D is shared as 23. C is taken as 23. So this is our formula: 11 power 23 mod 187. Again, we go for modular arithmetic, and we end up calculating the values like this. At the end of the day, we get this much value mod 187. You get the plain text as 11. No, I have made a mistake. Plain text will be 88 here. Okay, this is wrong. Right, so plain text will be 88. If you do this calculation, mod 187, you will get 88 as the plain text. All right, so this is how our key generation, our encryption, our decryption is happening. All right, so before going into the requirements, let's see the summary, how it happens. Very simple steps. If you could remember, it is better, but you have to. So we are going to choose two numbers, P and Q. P and Q are both primes, not relatively primes. They are individually prime numbers, and it cannot be equal to each other. Then calculate the value of n, second step. Calculate pi of n, p minus 1 into q minus 1. Then select an integer e such that the GCD of phi of n and e should be 1. That is, e should be relatively prime with pi of n, and it also should be less than pi of n. Then calculate the value of d such that d is equal to e inverse mod pi of n, which means it's a multiplicative inverse. In other words, de is equal to 1 mod pi of n. That's how we get the public key and the private key. En combination is the public key, Den combination is the private key. Okay, and then how do we proceed? We got the plain text is taken as m. Ciphertext is calculated like the plain text is raised to the power of e mod n. We'll get the ciphertext. For the decryption, take the ciphertext raised to the power of the d. In our example, take mod n. You'll get the original message m. Right? So this is how our RSA algorithm is working. Very simple yet powerful algorithm. Okay, so what's the requirement of RSA algorithm? It is possible to find values of E, D, and N such that M power ED mod N is equal to M for all M. Okay, you should be able to find out, which means the calculation should be simple. It is relatively easy to calculate M power E mod N and C power D mod N for all values. Okay. It is infeasible to determine the D given E and N. Given the value of E and N, you cannot deduce the key of D, N. So this is the requirement of RSA, right? Okay, we'll take the security of RSA in a detailed way, preferably in tomorrow's session. I have got 10 more minutes to go, but still wanted to stop here. But we are going to look at the security or the strength of RSA on different aspects. One is what is its resistance to attack, if it is a brute force attack, if it is a mathematical attack, because RSA, if you go for the smaller numbers, it always suffers with factoring the prime numbers. So if you could factorize it, your RSA is broken. Okay. Then the timing attack. I have already spoken about this timing attack, how much time it takes to encrypt or decrypt at various time. And hardware fault based attack and chosen ciphertext attack. This is to randomly check by choosing whether it is able to decrypt it properly. All right. So this is how you can exploit or you can show that RSA is vulnerable to such attacks. So that is a chosen ciphertext attack. We'll see whether we will be able to explore all these things or at least a portion of them in the next class. All right. So I stop sharing.